July 1st, 2025. This is the Arlington County Board of Equalization hearings. There are 3 cases on the agenda, and all 5 board members are present virtually. The first case, RPC 1802402A at 2250 Clarendon Boulevard. Ms. Ross has asked to withdraw yesterday afternoon. Excuse me. I assume Mr. Burns, no objection?
No objections.
Okay, I'll move to accept the withdrawal. Do I have a second? Okay, Mr. Hoffman? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. We were all ahead of ourselves voting there. Okay. The case has been withdrawn. The second case, so we have Mr. Warren and Mr. Chikas on. Okay, next case is RPC 2800466 at 1075 South Jefferson. Mr. Warren, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about the property, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll direct the board to it'll be page 31 of 160 on the county's memo. That's where you'll find our summary of facts. This is the Wildwood Towers Apartments in South Arlington. It is located at 1075 South Jefferson Street. Currently assessed at $31,688,300. The county is recommending a revision to $31,181,900. And what we're asking for from the board today is a total assessment value of $27,561,200. The property is an older property in South Arlington, originally built in 1965 and most recently renovated in 2003. It's 134 total units, a high-rise, 10 stories. It's located in near Bailey's Crossroads and just to the north of where Wakefield High School is. I'll direct now the board's attention to page 3 of 163, which is, of 160, which is the county's apartment I&E summary page. And you'll see that in columns A, B, C, and E, we've included 4 years of operating income of the subject property. It is a stabilized property. And you'll see that the county has their original assessment valuation analysis in column D, and then a test column in column F. The gross potential income of this property, if you look at the past history of operations, has been stabilized. And the county's original assessment, their total GPI estimate used was $3,446,600, which is pretty closely aligned to the actual gross potential income that was reported in calendar year 2024, which was $3,414,137. Now you'll see that $3,414,137 gross potential income that was reported in the 2024 year-end income and expense survey that was submitted along with the appeal is the highest gross potential income that the property has ever been able to achieve in the last 4 consecutive boarding years, as evidenced by columns A, B, C, and E. And in their test column, upon review of our application and evidence submission, they increased their gross potential income by approximately $200,000. So it went from $3,446,600 to $3,652,900, which is, again, now substantially higher than the property has ever reported. Likewise, when you look at their their total operating expenses, again, this property is a stabilized property, and it's reported pretty similar operating costs over the last several years. And dating back for the last 3 years, it's reported operating expense ratios of 39.3%. 43.7%, and most recently in calendar year 2024, 43.94%. The county's initial analysis was used an operating expense ratio of 40.25%, and that was then increased in their test column to 44.5%. So again, what you'll see in the test column, it'll be a similar case in our appeal tomorrow. Is that in the county's test column, they appear to have come more in line with the actual operating expenses, at the subject property, but then overshot the gross potential income in comparison to what the property is actually able to achieve. So although I think the test column does fix the operating expenses and the misalignment there, we're now misaligned with the gross potential income. Again, these we've talked about these Ditmar properties a bunch in the past, but operating expenses continue to rise. Contractor and maintenance costs continue to increase. Supply costs continue to increase, along with the rise of inflation. That trend is expected to continue. Our pro forma in column G also assumed a 20% higher increase, or 20% basis point increase to the base cap, or the overall cap rate that was used. The county is currently using a fully loaded cap rate of 6%. Now that includes 0.2% for replacement reserves and 1.03% estimated tax rate. So the base cap rate that's being applied here for the 2025 assessment is a 4.77% base rate in South Arlington for a property that was originally built in 1965. And there are just no sales comps that support the use of a 4.77 base rate for an older apartment complex in South Arlington. Now that the cap rate of 6% is actually that's used by the county is actually a 30% basis point increase from the prior year. So they are trending and realizing they've been too low over the last couple of years, and they're trending in the right direction, but it's still too low in comparison to, again, comparable sales in the area, which again, there are no sales that support a 4.77 base cap rate in South Arlington. In addition to investor cap rate surveys, we've included, I believe it's on page, starting on page 34 of 160, a CoStar submarket report that includes the average base cap rates for all the submarkets in Arlington, and outline Arlington, which would include South Arlington, indicates a base cap rate of 5.5%. RERC indicates an average cap rate of 6% for apartments, and the Mid-Atlantic region PwC fourth quarter report of 2024 would support an average cap rate of 5.71% for apartments. So again, the county's revision column is showing a reduction, and that's due to the changes that were made to the operating expense ratio. But we believe there was an over adjustment made for the gross potential income just based off of what this property has been able to achieve over the last 4 years. And the way it's trending, I don't think it's going to achieve a $3,652,900 gross potential income next year. So we're hoping that the county, or excuse me, the board, takes some consideration to the gross potential income in the county's test column currently. And that's all I have, and I'll leave it up to you all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chikas for the county.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, board members. Good morning, Mr. Warren. We'll rely primarily upon page 3, the summary sheet. We did hear the appellant speak, quite frankly, about gross potential income, but we heard nothing about effective gross income. Again, we heard this last year, as Mr. Warren noted. You'll probably hear this tomorrow and in coming weeks. It's important to note that the county does use guideline vacancy and concessions. In this case, 5% was allotted for the revision. If you noted the 5%, the total vacancy and concession that is allowed is more than the last 3 years combined. Why is that? Because this property is extremely well stabilized, less than 1% of vacancy the last 3 years in a row. When we look at the performance of the property, we see apartment rents alone, just apartment rent up 3 years in a row, 2.4% in 2022, up a full percent to 3.6% in 2023, up another 1.3% to 4.9% growth in 2024. GPI is up 3 years in a row, 2.3% in 2022, 3.5% in 2023, 4.6% in 2024. Effective gross income is up 3 years in a row, 4.5% in 2022, 2.6% in 2023, and another 4.9% in 2024. NOI was up 4.5% in 2024. Again, The idea behind our original assessment is that we did not have the 2024 year information available to us. When you look at that year compared to what was reported, you can see that we were low. Only 1% growth projected for gross potential as opposed to the 4.6 that was achieved, less than 2.5% less than what was achieved in 2023, let alone what was achieved in 2024. When you look at the original projection for effective gross income, it was a negative 2% increase year over year. That makes no sense after 3 years of growth and almost 5% growth in 2024 alone. With this information, we did test that information with the rent roll, the 1% vacancy, and noted again the growth year over year over year. For column F, we did modestly project 3% effective gross, again, after years of 4.5, 2.6, and 4.9. As far as our NOI projection, 2.2% growth, so less than half of what was achieved last year. The county projects a 4.5% increase to OpEx. If you look again in column G, the owner believes that they will not make 1 penny more than they did in 2025. Zero growth expectation for gross potential, and a negative year-over-year effective gross projection. This again after 4.5, 2.6, and 4.9% growth. The bottom line is the idea that when you look at last year's assessment compared to this year, the county has a very modest 1.4% growth year over year, as opposed to the owner's projection of negative 10.4%. We do believe that the county should be confirmed at a revised value of $31,181,900. And again, this amount includes the deduction for land that is in Fairfax County. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Questions from board members? No? Okay, any final comments, Mr. Chikas? Excuse me.
Just to again establish the fact that it's a highly stabilized building, less than 1% vacancy last 3 years in a row, 3 years of growth at apartment level, gross potential income, effective gross. Please understand that while the gross potential may be a large projection, given that we're allowing for more vacancy concessions than has been achieved the last 3 years combined, we do believe our revision should be confirmed at $31,181,900. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Warren, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Yeah, so just again, with reiterating the gross potential income, the county applies a 5% vacancy and collection loss to all high-rise apartment towers in the county. In the county's test column, they've overestimated the gross potential income the property is able to achieve based off of market rents that they are currently able to lease at. They are not able to lease a gross potential or generate a gross potential income of anywhere near $3,652,900. We recognize that the property is stabilized and it has below market vacancy. However, if this property had exactly 5%, as of the valuation date, or experienced 5% vacancy over the last 3 years, the county would not overestimate the gross potential income in that case. In this case, they're overestimating, and I know Chris wanted to talk about the effective gross income. The effective gross income in the test column, which was in the initial analysis $3,274,270, is now $3.47 million, which is $110,000 higher than the effective gross income that was reported in calendar year 2024, and significantly higher than any EGI the property's been able to report in any of the last 4 consecutive years.
All right, thank you both. Okay, it's just among the board. Where are folks? Mr. Penaranda?
I mean, I don't see that the property went down, considering that the income and all the numbers are really going up year after year. But I do think that maybe the expenses were a bit low. And of course, that gives us a number that even if we increase it by a few points, it does bring it close to the value that it was last year. So, there are a couple of ways to do it, but I don't know where everybody else stands about making a change.
Okay, Mr. Mendez.
Yeah, I agree with you. I ran a couple of tests with the expenses. They did look a little bit low. You know, I tried the actual expenses in column D, and then that really dropped the NOI. So what I settled on was just capping out column E at 6%, and it was a very slight reduction. I understand GPI is up 4% year over year, but as the appellant stated, cap rates are slightly up as well. So I think that kind of kind of balances out. So I came up to 30,504,200.
And you kept column E?
Column E, yes, the actuals, which of course the counties, like they said, they didn't have, so they did a good job with what they had. But it
Mhm.
just seems, based on historical numbers, I think that's the most appropriate thing to do.
Okay, Mr. Hoffman or Mr. Yates?
I mean, I was okay with the original number, just going through and rents are growing. So, to take last year's rents when they're probably up 4% this year. So, I mean, I took column E and I did a 4% rent growth, and I also did a 4% expense growth. And I came out like right where the county was on their original assessment.
Mhm.
So I'm actually okay with the reduced assessment.
Mr. Yates?
I was okay with reduced assessment. I guess I have a little bit of problem in the discussion that because they do have low rent, low vacancy, the county bumps up the rent level just to offset the fact that it does carry a low vacancy. So the 5%, while they're using it, really doesn't mean anything. They're just up in the one to offset the other. And I don't know how we should feel about that. I mean, the county has a policy of the 5% for a reason, not and just to offset it with more income. I have a concern with that, but at the same time, on this project, I'm okay with the revised.
Right, but even just as just a counterpoint here, Mr. Yates, but if you look at column D, the effective gross income, is lower than the operating year. So
Right,
that it kind of.
right. I was looking at F. But it's just the idea of bumping up the rents, the amount they did just to offset the vacancy because it's a 5% policy.
Right.
That's where I have a concern, but at the same time, I'm fine with this property.
Okay, and I'm confused. Are you fine with the revised number from the county?
I could go either way, but I prefer the revised.
Okay. All right. Mr. Mendez and Mr. Penaranda, can you live with that?
Yeah, I think you guys brought me up to to that number. It was very close, because I did the same number as Mr. Mendez did, and I also increased the expenses on the original assessment to 42%, but I came up with about a couple $100,000 more. But yeah, I'll be okay with it, with the revised.
Okay, all right. Would somebody like to make a motion? Mr. Hoffman.
All right, I'll motion to confirm the reduced county number at 31,181,900.
Okay. I'll second. Do we have or all in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. The county's revised number of 31,181,900 has been confirmed.
Thank you all.
Okay, we have Ms. Roskin. I saw Ms. Brooks jumped on early. Okay.
Yes, good morning, board.
Okay, the next and final case is RPC 35005031, 1101 South Joyce. Ms. Brooks, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property.
All right, thank you very much, board. So this property represents the apartment piece of the Pentagon Row Shopping Center, which is known as MAA National Landing. It consists of, oh, I'm sorry. I lost my spot. This is a 504 unit Class A apartment above the retail at Pentagon Row. It was built originally in 1999. We are only focusing on the apartment portion of this property and not the retail below. The current assessment is 207,233,400, which equates to 411,171 per unit. As of the date of value, the property was 95% occupied, so it has maintained stable occupancy over the years. And Mid-America apartment community, they do account for their income and expenses a little differently, which Ms. Roskin and I have discussed prior to the hearing. And unfortunately, we didn't have a time to really chat at the first level, so we did file to the board. And I think that there isn't a whole lot of discussion here. I think Mr. Warren brought up the issue that most affects the value of this property, and it's the capitalization rate that the county is using to value properties this year. And because I think you see within on the county's worksheet, when you do a comparison of the county's NOI and what we and ownership are projecting the NOI to be, the county is definitely lower than what we even projected, but the capitalization rate is truly what is affecting value here. And as Mr. Warren had pointed out, cap rates have expanded since 2022. CBRE within their appraisal group values a lot of these properties, and also verifies sales within the county in their appraisal process, which unfortunately I did not number my pages. However, there is a chart that includes sale comparables that show the capitalization rates of sales that have happened within the county. I've tried to keep it within kind of a tight range as far as age is concerned. But the average cap rates on these 5 sales is 5.34, with the lowest being the Fitzroy at 4.75. CBRE also puts out a cap rate survey, especially since the pandemic. They have put out first half and second half surveys. And on the last page of our evidence, you will see what a Class A stabilized asset within Washington, D.C. market. First half 2024 was 5.25 to 5.75. Fortunately, the market is stabilizing, and the second half of 24 was a 4.75 to 4.25. So with that, we increased the base cap to a 5% and then loaded it with the tax rate, which implies the 6.116 capitalization rate. I also this morning, and unfortunately didn't include it within our analysis, pulled some real capital analytic sales that again support what we are suggesting. I think the Alcott is the most comparable. Which is a property that was built in 2009. The cap rate that Real Capital is showing is 5.1. Our appraisers indicated a 5.75. That could have been the pro forma stabilized capitalization rate, but still higher than the county's base rate. And again, we're seeing cap rates. The lowest we're seeing is a 4.8 or a 4.75, which we've indicated here. Real Capital also has the Fitzroy at a 4.8% cap rate. So really that's what it comes down to in this appeal is the capitalization rate. And I'm not sure how the county is handling that this year. Unfortunately, this is the only apartment that I work in the county. So unlike Blake Warren, I am not as well versed in the county's analysis for these things, but that's kind of where we stand. And so capitalizing our pro forma NOI, which like I said, is higher than the county's, puts us at 192,304,000. I know there was a bit of a concern about including reserves. And from what I'm hearing, what Mr. Warren was saying, that is typically loaded into the cap rate. So if I took out reserves, that increases our NOI again capped at our value, would put us at around 195 million versus the 207 that it's currently being assessed at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Roskin for the county, please.
Thank you, board members. Thank you, Rachel. Just a brief recap for this particular property. During the appeal process, the owner submitted the 2023 and 2024 income operating statement. So we didn't have that when we valued the property for January. We didn't have the 2023 when we valued the January 1 assessment. But after reconstructing and, email conversation, I reconstructed their income statement and noticed they did not include a management fee. But in the email they stated how much that management fee is. I added that into both columns C and E for the 2023 and 2024. They both show the management fee in there. When you look at the January 1 assessment, as we go down the line, it's pretty simple. Our GPI is lower than what's being reported for 2024. The EGI is lower than what's being reported for the 2024. And our expenses are, oh my gosh, I can't even expect to get that close. But overall, our NOI is lower than what's being reported for the 2024. And so as Rachel explained, I guess the difference here is the cap rate. And as we've explained in the past, our cap rates are based on sales in Arlington County and income and expense statements that are submitted to us. That's how we develop our cap rates. And that's a very nice, tight-knit, good data. We back it up with looking at the publications, the PwC, the RERC, and keep in mind, we only have up until the third quarter for those particular publications. Now we use those to assist and guide us. Are our cap rates correct? We did increase cap rates this year, 30 basis points. Keep in mind that this property is in a very premium location. I can't imagine being in a better location than this to DC. We're close to the metro station, which is only 1 block away. We're right next to a major shopping mall. In this apartment, there you have a number of national name brand retail stores and restaurants, healthcare, grocery stores right there for residents. Like I said, you're also close to the airport, if I didn't mention that. So this is a premium location. We believe that our cap rate at 5.65 is well supported, and our January 1 assessment is well supported. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you both. Questions from board members? Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah, for the appellant, what's the average renewal increase going into 2025?
I don't know that.
Okay. You're with CBRE, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions? Okay, Ms. Roskin, if you take a minute to wrap up then.
Just a brief note that once again, the income is showing an increase every year. And our January 1 assessment across the board, the GPI, the EGI, and the NOI, we're all under. Every one of those are under what's being reported for the 2021. That's it. Thank you.
Just to reiterate, I apologize if we can fish our minute. Again, some $400,000 below what was achieved in 23, let alone 2024. When you look at last year's assessment, the projection by the department is less than 1% growth, 0.85%. as opposed to the appellant's negative 6.4%. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brooks, if you take a minute to wrap up, please.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we are not disputing the numbers that are being used for the valuation calculation. This truly is a cap rate discussion. I mean, we're having these challenges with DC as well. Fairfax County definitely recognized more of an expansion this year. And not that, and I don't dispute the location. It's a great property. I've shopped that shopping center. It is a great location, but I think that the sales that have taken place, those are not sales based on in-place income. Those are sales and cap rate projections that are based on future incomes. These are people that are buying these properties to hold them. And the risk tolerance is just not below a 5 at this point in our market. So I do think that a 5% starting cap rate is very much supported and below what the comparables are showing. I think Mr. Warren brought that to your attention already. So I'm just reiterating the fact that needs to be recognized. It's not a sub 5 cap rate anymore. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Excuse me, it's just among the board members. Where are folks on this? Mr. Penaranda?
I'm totally okay with the original assessment. I think the numbers there speak by, by themselves. And I think the cap rate issue is something that we've already talked about. The county did use numbers that were available at the time and are justifiable. So I'm okay with it.
Okay, other folks? Mr. Hoffman?
Just to clarify, because it looks like we're talking about just the residential portion, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And when we have our cover sheet and everything has the total value, but are we gonna be voting on the residential value or the total value? I mean, how does the motion work? If we're, I'm just curious, Mary. I guess we're just confirming or not confirming the residential portion of it,
Correct.
and then the county can do the math that they need to figure out the rest of it.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, just to clarify, I guess when we sign the minutes, it's going to include the retail portion, but since it's being confirmed, the numbers are going to be the same.
Okay, but the retail is under the same RPC and everything. That's why
Right.
we're doing the total.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, my point, you got to look at rent growth, with renewals, not just last year's number, but you can look at rent growth, you can look at expense growth as well. And I did the same thing I did on the last case, and I ended up with essentially where the county's at, being like a 4.78 is the effective cap rate, and we got a comp at 4.75, which is the Fitzroy. Plus, this property's got some retail that's very stable, and I guess we're not hearing that case because it's probably underassessed a little bit. But so I think you could probably warrant a 4.8 cap rate on a transaction of a property of this caliber.
Mhm. Right, anything different?
No.
Mr. Mint? Okay. All right. I went a little different, but it ended up with the same thing. I mean, actually, if you put a little increase to the NOI and cap it out at the appellant's
I did that.
suggested cap rate, it ends up at 208. So
I did that too.
yeah,
I was surprised.
yeah.
That's good.
So okay, all right. Would somebody like to make a motion then?
Now he's generous.
I'll go ahead and move that we confirm the assessment at $207,230,400, and that's for the apartment section.
Second.
Okay, motion and second by Mr. Yates. All in favor? Aye, opposed. Okay, it's unanimous. The county's confirmed on the apartment portion at 207,230,400. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, that completes today's agenda with the cancellation. Does anybody have anything else?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay, well, excuse me, we will stand adjourned here then at 9:34. Reconvene tomorrow morning, July 2nd at 9 a.m. in person for the board members. So we'll see you in the morning, folks.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.